Dear poor people, is Caitlin Clark the Jackie Robinson of women's basketball?
In with the story of the day. Okay, the fallout following Saturday's controversial foul in the WNBA game between Indiana and Chicago continues. You've seen it now a million times. Third quarter, Kennedy Carter shoulder checking Caitlin Clark from behind, knocking her down before the ball is inbounded. A common foul called on the court. The WNBA upgrading it to a flagrant one on Sunday. After the game, Carter did not answer any questions about the incident. Then yesterday, her coach, Teresa Weatherspoon, released a statement saying, quote, "Physical play, intensity, and a competitive spirit are hallmarks of Chicago Sky basketball. Kennedy got caught up in the heat of the moment in an effort to win the game. She and I have discussed what happened and that it was not appropriate, nor is it what we do or who we are. Kennedy understands that there are better ways to handle situations on the court, and she will learn from this, as we all will." After that statement was released, Carter and her teammate Angel Reese addressed the situation.
Now that it's another day, I've had an off day, now I can answer your questions and I can let you know how I really feel about things. But I'm a competitor and I'm going to compete no matter who you are and no matter who's in front of me. So that's just what it was. Heat of the moment play, we're getting at it, we're going back and forth. It's basketball, it's all hoops. After we finish the game, it's all love. I'm truly a passionate person about the game and I'm genuine. You can ask all my teammates. They've got to know me. They know the real Kennedy Carter. So I'm just saying, don't form an opinion off of one little clip and you didn't even see the whole game and or the play that led to that. And we've had things that have been thrown into hoops like racism and just different things thrown to players that shouldn't even been brought up. If you're gonna watch the game, watch all of the game before you make opinions. Just watch the whole game and get to know the players. Those that saying you don't know players, you haven't watched the WNBA. Get to know your players that are already here and already in this league and already trying to make a mark.
I'll look back in 20 years and be like, yeah, the reason why we watching women's basketball is not just because of one person. It's because of me too, and I want y'all to realize that. Like, it's not just because of one person. A lot of us have done so much for this game, and Kennedy has been here before, obviously, but there are so many great players in this league that have deserved this for a really, really long time, and luckily, it's coming now.
Okay, so a lot of people are very little gun shy of wanting to say, could this be a Jackie Robinson moment? And to be fair, we have the ability to look back at Jackie Robinson's whole life. I mean, just as a brief recap, obviously he was a phenomenal talent in college. I believe graduated from UCLA. He had a military background, and then he was playing on a farm team. Branch Rickey signs him to the Dodgers. He becomes, breaks the color barrier as the first, Black player to play in the major leagues, makes history, and was a phenomenal talent from the very beginning. Certainly could not be denied. He was not a DEI hire. He got there on merit, and he was a phenomenal talent. And unfortunately, at least in the beginning of his career in Major League Baseball, he really had to sort of steady himself and hold himself against malicious attacks on him. And at that time, those attacks, at least in part, were definitely racially motivated, which is sort of what seems to be entering or circling around or flirting in the conversation around Caitlin Clark. Caitlin Clark, also a phenomenal talent, also somebody who's new, rookie in the WNBA. And the WNBA has struggled to find any relevance in sports culture and really in the sort of zeitgeist of American sort of pop culture, and where most athletes fall. Athletes fall in the same category often, especially elite athletes that are competing at the highest level. They enjoy a similar public interaction and engagement as celebrities. So these athletes are also celebrities as well. The WNBA does not really have that, or at least until now, has not had that kind of celebrity. It doesn't make that kind of money. It doesn't engender that kind of fanaticism from the fans. People are not as invested in the teams and who wins and who loses. So it's struggled in those ways. And now a little bit of that tide seems to be turning. There's some light that's being shined on the WNBA, and it's mostly because of the entry of Caitlin Clark, who appears to be quite a phenomenal player. Now, I'm not going to say that I am a person who knows everything about basketball. That would not be fair. However, I don't want to tout my own horn, but I was the statistician for my high school basketball team. So a thing or two I do know. And I did grow up in a serious basketball family. So I would like to say this. I'm going to let the tape play. I want to go back while we're watching this. I want you to think about the Jackie Robinson comparison, because really I want to look at that and say, is that a bridge too far? Or are we on the beginning of looking at a reversal of what happened to Jackie Robinson now happening in women's basketball? All right, go ahead. Let's continue.
Okay, and so that sort of sets the table for the conversation this morning, and Monica McNutt is here, and we are delighted to have Rebecca Lobo to chime in. And just very briefly, as I said yesterday, I'm not going to parachute into the middle of a nuanced debate in the middle of a sport that I have not covered as extensively for the last 35 years as I have the NBA and the National Football League and others, and start throwing out opinions based on things that I've observed over the course of these last 3 weeks. That's what you guys are here for, because you understand the subtext of what is going on infinitely better than most of the people who are talking about it. So let's go right to it. Start there, Rebecca. When you hear what Kennedy Carter says now in sort of the light of day, a couple of days after the incident, what is your reaction?
Well, honestly, Greenie, I don't necessarily believe there is a subtext. You know, this has kind of turned into a bigger conversation about society and sport. And in this instance, I think it was just about a foul in a basketball game. And I think that's kind of what Kennedy is talking about as well. You know, there's been a narrative throughout the first few weeks of the season that veterans are jealous of Caitlin Clark and that they're targeting her with dirty play. And I have not seen that at all. And I think that was the biggest problem that came out of this, is that argument that didn't really have teeth then had video to go along and support it. But I think for Kennedy, this is just something that happened in a basketball game, and everybody outside of the sport has turned it into something so much bigger.
You agree with that?
I completely agree with that, right? This is not a good look. It wasn't a basketball play. I think we all can acknowledge that. But especially if you've ever competed at a high level, to take out emotion from competition, how do you do that, right? I think this is not a play that Kennedy probably is proud of, but as she said, we're playing basketball, emotions get high, you're competing. This, to me, Greeny, and I said this to you yesterday, this is the biggest non-story story in sports I think I've ever seen.
Well, but here's why it's not a non-story, because everyone is talking about it. And it does, what I mean by subtext is I think has been fairly evident, is that in most cases when there's sort of a basketball play, the Chicago Tribune isn't writing editorials about it, suggesting that the things that are happening on the basketball court would be considered assault if done in the street. I would add, just very briefly as context to that, that could be said of literally every game being played in the NBA and the National Football League and the National Hockey League. So to write that in this context, I think is bordering on irresponsible, because people then will just click on that, and the people exactly, Rebecca, who don't really understand what's happening here will say, see, the Chicago Tribune says this was assault. This was obviously not assault any more than anything that we will see coming up Thursday night, probably 10 times in the context of an NBA Finals game. That said, when you say, Rebecca, that you're not seeing jealousy or whatever the word is, I remember when Michael Jordan was a rookie in the National Basketball Association, he was getting so much attention, and the vets in the All-Star game that year decided to freeze him out. They weren't going to pass him the ball because he was the young kid and he hadn't kind of earned his stripes. I think that that's the genesis of the issues between Michael Jordan and Isaiah Thomas to this day. So that's what I would analogize this to. Is there something like that going on here with Caitlin Clark?
Caitlin Clark is getting an unprecedented amount of defensive attention when you watch her play on the basketball court. I've been going back and watching film from Sabrina Ionescu when she was a rookie, Kelsey Plum when she was a rookie, other players that came in with a lot of hype. None of them were being guarded 94 feet from the basket when they did not have the basketball in their hands. None of them were being guarded 35 to 40 feet from the basket when they didn't have the ball and they were on the weak side of the floor. She is getting all kinds of defensive attention, as she should. She is the player who is going to be the one who helps Indiana win basketball games. That being said, have there been hard fouls on her that have not been called? Yes. These are basketball plays. This should have been a foul on Ezi Magbegor. Was it a dirty play? No, it was a basketball play. That's in the officials' hands. Should Jewel Lloyd have been called for an offensive foul when she was backing Caitlin Clark down on this play? Yes, a foul should have been called, but it was a basketball play. It should have been a common foul. That's not on the players. That's on the officials. I don't think she's getting the benefit of the doubt at times from the officials, but I do not think the other players in the league are targeting her in a dirty way, certainly not one that is fueled by jealousy. They're just coming at her as competitors.
Oh, there's the magic word, Rebecca. Competitors. I don't know why we've separated competition from a basketball league, right?
All right. So, first of all, I don't think that Kennedy was ashamed. We saw her. She said she had a day to think about it and reflect on it. And she didn't seem at all ashamed when she came back to the press conference to give any remarks. So, I don't think that we should go ahead and give her a pass and say, oh, we know this is probably not her best moment and she's probably ashamed. That's for her to say, and she hasn't said that. So I'm not ascribing that to her. That's number one. Number two, I think these two women have an interest in making sure that they put the best light and the best spin on this situation because they have a love for the sport and they don't want the WNBA and the league to look bad because this does not look like competition. This does not look like people that are just too emotional. Not with Kennedy, not that so-called shoulder check when the ball wasn't even in play. The problem with this, and this is what brings in the Jackie Robinson comparison, which is, I admittedly say, it's not the best comparison yet because Caitlin has only been there a few minutes. We've only known her name for 15 minutes, and we have this man's whole life and career that we can look at. There is a huge difference in the amount of information we have on Caitlin Clark. But what isn't different, or what doesn't look like it's different, is the maliciousness with which that check happened. It's not that she was passionate. If you watch her when she walks up to Caitlin Clark, she's very reserved. She's very calm. She seems okay. She seemed, if you stopped her and asked her, what's the closest 7-Eleven, she could say, take a right, go up 2 blocks, and then a left. She was fine. The issue is that she came from behind and she knowingly, decidedly, and on purposely moved that girl and knocked her to the floor when, in fact, the ball wasn't even in play and it wouldn't have anything to do with it. So now, do we want to say that this is the result of racism? I'm very reticent to assign racism to any event or any activity when there are two people of a different race involved with it. I think that's foolish and I think it's childish. So I'm not going to say it's racism. I'm not saying it isn't. We may find out in the future that this Kennedy did harbor racist feelings against Caitlin Clark. I don't know. That may be true one day. I hope most likely that it isn't. However, it does, at least for now, we'll keep an eye on this situation, but it does, at least for now, look like a whole lot of mean girl stuff going on the basketball court. And it does, try as these two ladies might try to take the light away from jealousy. And God knows that Angel Reese's jealousy, because she said, I want y'all to realize that people are watching. It's also because of me. I mean, I don't know how anybody could tell you they're more jealous than the way she just did it. If there's another way to say, I'm really jealous, please tell me how she could have done it. Because that, I think, was excellent. She did an excellent job of conveying exactly how jealous she was. And I think that these two ladies who are speaking on ESPN are embarrassed by that because they saw what we saw. They saw some real mean girl activity. And what is the intent behind that? At least for now, it probably looks like it's smack dab in the middle on jealousy. That's what I'm going with. If you want to throw in some envy, I'll take that too. But I'm definitely, that's where, if we get to vote, where's my vote? I'm voting on jealousy. And although I'd love to stay here and talk about this much longer, I can't because I need to go plan my snacks for what I'm going to be eating tomorrow during game 1 of the NBA Finals. Okay, how about that, ladies? How about that? Thank you. Please remember to like, share, subscribe. I really appreciate you checking out this video. Please come back and visit my channel again and make sure you're there the next time I drop a new video. Have a great night. Bye-bye.